Welcome back to Theme Park Universe, episode 11. I have Theme Park Wizard, Dr. Dre Bash Guy, and special guest Tom Corless from WDNT. How are you, Tom? Thank you for joining.
I'm good. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic. We're very happy to have you on ours as our special guest. Dr. Dre has our lots of topics lined up. What do you got, Doctor?
Well, I just wanted to go ahead and start out things pretty casually. Now, Tom, I know that you went to the Pixar Place Hotel recently. Is that right? And checked out the
the grand opening. Yeah.
The redo. What do you personally think about it?
I mean, have either of you ever stayed at Paradise Pier Hotel?
I have not.
No, but I
You're not
have been
missing
there
anything.
many times.
You're not missing anything.
Okay.
It was pretty dated. It wasn't a Disney hotel. They bought it from someone way back in the 90s, and they did like a light, retheme in 2001, somewhere in that time. And so it was fine. It wasn't really worth the price they were charging a night for it. So it was a little rough, but I feel like after 20 something years, they finally went back in and made it worth staying at, probably. But for me, more than the hotel, I just like they opened this a little while ago, but they have the entrance to California Adventure again, their own private entrance.
Oh, yes.
Was there at opening, and then there were so few people that they closed it. And then eventually Disneyland eventually pulled out of that. And then a couple of years later, they're like, we should bring that entrance back. Although I think it's in slightly a different spot now, but super convenient. But overall, the hotel's a big improvement over what was there before.
I think so. It charges a lot. We have no value hotels like Walt Disney World, so that kind of hurts it, right? Because everything has to be brought to the level of deluxe, and some people have a very they're intimately aware of what that looks like, and maybe it doesn't necessarily justify that, but. Location, I guess. But it is nice to have that side entrance right there. I was trying to find your opinion on everything related to Epic Universe. And if I missed it, I really do apologize about this, Tom. But I know Wizard and I are very interested in your thoughts on that, given that you have one company spending a lot of money on theme parks, and you have another company who says they're spending a lot of money, but we haven't necessarily seen the fruits of that. What's your take?
See, I think the community is very quick to forget things, right? I think if you look at Disney World let's say from like 2016 to the 50th, right? Like, look, 50th wasn't great, and there were some attractions in that group I'm not a fan of, but there was a lot of spending for 5 or 6 years there, right? And if I'm being honest, like, yeah, Universal was spending, but it was really just they kind of let the two older parks rot a bit, right? Like Velocicoaster essentially replaced, the Triceratops Encounter, which barely operated at that point. Jimmy Fallon, right? They had Twister, and they had to replace that with something. Is what they replaced it with better? You decide. Twister, I wrote Jimmy Fallon, I go, I miss Twister. I might miss Twister. I don't know. So I think like Disney hit a little bit of a lull, right? They decided to pump the brakes during COVID, and they spread some things out. Guardians got pushed back several months. Ratatouille and Harmonious got pushed back a year. Tron they pushed back until after the event was even over. Same with Moana in the middle of Epcot and all that stuff. But I don't know that I'd say Disney stopped building things, and we're not. The Tiana project's a big deal. I think we saw that. Funny enough, that's today. They showed the animatronics. They're spending a lot of money on that, and they've basically several times said, "Hey, something's happening either in Frontierland or beyond it. We're definitely doing something in Animal Kingdom. I don't know what it's going to be. It keeps changing.
It keeps changing. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do something, but to actually answer your question about Epic, there's some things I'm excited about, and there's some things I'm not. And so Super Nintendo World, I've been to the other two, and the one in Florida is going to emulate Japan a bit, and it's a really pretty land. Like, you really feel like you've stepped into that world, and that's fantastic. I love that. the rides are not good. The Yoshi ride is very, very short and very slow, and there's not a whole lot going on. And I know some people love Mario Kart, some people don't. I'm in the camp where I think the AR technology we thought was going to be a fad, and it's kind of not. People decided they don't, it's not their favorite thing. We figured that out with the Spider-Man ride at California Adventure too, right? Both of those, I think people were disappointed. Probably more so disappointed with Spider-Man. Mario Kart's probably still a better ride. But yes, I'm not wildly excited about Super Nintendo World. We'll see when Donkey Kong opens in Japan. I think like everyone else, I'm excited for MonsterVerse, right? An IP that a series of IPs that don't get a lot of love outside of Horror Nights. And so it's cool to see them doing something with that. The middle of the park, what you're showing right now is the middle of the park, I think is really pretty. And it's something we don't get a lot of anymore, right? A land that doesn't have IP in it. It's not based on movies. People getting to be creative. Of course, I'm sure Harry Potter will be great. I don't know how many more locales are left from Harry Potter. I don't know how many more.
They digging in the well for that one.
Yeah, I don't know how many more places we can go. And then, I mean, How to Train Your Dragon, I think there's a fandom there that has been dying for that. And the stuff in Beijing, people love. The stage show has been a smash hit there. So I'm sure it will be in Orlando. But I think there's stuff to be excited about. I'm still worried about Orlando. I'm still worried that we can't really take on another major theme park without existing major theme park suffering, right? Because if we let's dial back the clock 26 years. Animal Kingdom opens, Disney thinks they're going to have higher attendance. They don't. Less people go to Epcot and MGM or Hollywood Studios.
Cannibalization.
And then Islands of Adventure opens and nearly sinks Universal Orlando. Like
That's
you
true.
can blame some of it on the marketing campaign, right? The Universal Escape thing. But I think it also reached a point where people are like, I'm coming for a week and I'll fit what I can fit in a week, but something's not making it in, right? And that's my fear with Epic.
I think it was so bad that Universal sold part of the shares or the ownership shares of Islands of Adventure, which was pretty crazy.
Blackstone, which was, I would think, their darkest period under Blackstone.
Indeed. Wizard, you were going to say something?
Oh yeah, I was going to say, because you mentioned that, but also just as the Orlando market in general, you have SeaWorld's building things, Disney's building things, and Universal's building things. I feel like there's a shrinking pool of construction workers to pull from with all these construction projects.
Oh yes.
Which could be pose at least a problem for at least delays or for new stuff, because if everyone's working on Epic or SeaWorld or Tiana, then who do you pull from to build stuff? And also when the things are open, is there enough of a labor market for hire team members, cast members, and whatever SeaWorld calls their guys? I feel like that could be a growing issue, especially as I see that Orlando has gotten more expensive to live. So I don't know the wages out there for the team members. But what do you think about that, Tom?
I think we're already seeing it, right? We saw a bunch of Universal just did a bunch of entertainment budget cuts, and part of its budget, and the other side of it is they want to slide those performers over and that money over to Epic, right? And maybe that is. I think the pool that we do not have that LA has is entertainment people, right?
Oh yeah, talent actors.
Yeah, I mean LA, you'll never run out. Like they could add 100 new
Why our
theme park
donkey
shows
sounds
in
so good.
Southern California and be fine. As opposed to here, where I think there's a very finite pool, and it's why you'll see there's a lot of performers that cross-pollinate that work at 2 or 3 of the major brands in Orlando, right? So I mean, Orlando's booming, right? Like the last several years, construction everywhere, people keep moving here. So
Crazy.
we say that, but it seems like there's, it was iffy during COVID, but it seems like there's enough people to fill these jobs. Are they going to be willing to fill these jobs at that pay? We'll have to wait.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah, I'm curious because I think I saw the average rent is what, 13 or 1400 for a 1-bedroom or something.
It's like the highest in the country, or just about.
Versus like 800 like a few years ago. So I'm like, wow, like double almost.
Yeah. We see that explosion in Anaheim as well.
Yeah.
It's a lot of construction, like you said. I know, and it drives construction costs up. So the amount of capex by these companies that they have to foist or they have to fork over to get some of the stuff installed goes up, and it can definitely be a real concern. And all along the I-4 corridor too, which. A lot of people who have never been to Florida or don't understand the proximity of these parks between each other, they're very, very close. It's not like any other region where a lot of this stuff is spread out. It's just all right there. So you make a good point. It's going to be really interesting to see what the performance of Epic Universe is like, not only for the park itself, but also the effects that it has on its surrounding neighbors. It's going to be very, very interesting to see.
Yeah,
That's some activity outdoors. So, I do apologize. But Universal has, I think, been on the upswing in terms of revenue. Also, we just learned that Disney is on the upswing when it comes to revenue as well. But a lot of it is international. And Tom, I bring this up because I know your enthusiasm for Walt Disney World, I think it's definitely been altered when considering the international parks and just how amazing some of those are, particularly Paris and so forth. I want to ask you, what makes the international parks special? Do you think that Disney's kind of investing in those for a particular reason outside of just revenue? And what are your thoughts and your take on that?
What's so funny is when you go out to because obviously WDWNT is known around the world, and so when we go out to these various places, we inevitably run into fans that are local to those parks. And what's funny is if you talk to any of them, they do not feel like they're the where the focus is, right? That's not the case. And I think what's funny is you're watching the domestic audience say that a lot, and I'm just shaking my head. I go, you guys, if you go to Paris and see that second park, you will very quickly understand that whatever they've just spent on it is not enough. It is still the worst Disney theme park in the world.
Yes.
And there's a long way to go there. That being said, it's across from the most beautiful castle park they've ever built. Which is, I think, the strength in Paris for sure. And finally, 30 years later, people have understood. The local audience was very standoffish with them for a very long time. And I think 30 years later, now they've come to be like, this is our park and we like it and we enjoy it. And the animosity of, Greater France 30 years ago has worn away finally. And now they're doing great. And that's not necessarily because Disney invested a ton. It is, I think it's definitely because they put a lot of refurbishment money into that park. If you go 5, 6, 7 years ago, the place was crumbling, which is why they have to close hotels for 2 years and essentially rebuild the entire interior because the place was left to crumble. And all the like Pirates, Phantom Manor, all these things they had to do, year-long, if not longer, refurbishments to get them back in shape. And now you're seeing the benefits of it. The park looks beautiful. You're finally seeing some money spent on that other park. And so there's good reasons to go there. I love Paris. It's wonderful. Cast members are great. Entertainment is second to none. But I think domestically, at least Walt Disney World, right? Disneyland, I don't think has changed much of what they do. But I think the company in total has realized, like, hey, Walt Disney World is really behind all of our other resorts in several departments, not in attendance and revenue. That we're good at. And that's, I think, why we got kind of lazy for a long time. But now I think they saw, like, hey, our entertainment at all the other parks in the world is considerably better.
Way better.
Than it is here. And so, like, they brought David Duffy in, and you've seen the shift. Just with Jollywood Nights alone, those 2 entertainment pieces were so different from anything we've ever had in Florida. I really felt like I was at one of the international parks, right? We had, a lot of very talented performers, live singing, live musicians, intense choreography. These are things, live puppeteers. These are things we got away from a long time ago.
Yeah.
And to see that back means someone noticed and someone is like, we could use a bit of a quality update here.
See, it's interesting you bring up entertainment now because talking about Paris, and they're incorporating lots of drones in their entertainment. Do you think Walt Disney World will get back into the drone game? Because I know they had one in Disney Springs for like a second. But do you think with that shift in entertainment, they'll be more open to bringing a drone type show with fireworks back to one of the parks in the resort?
I think it has to be in the works already. It has to be because they're falling behind. Right, like Paris took the initiative for their 30th and tried to come up with, well, what could we do? And let's be honest, they hired an outside company. What are they? Dronos? I forget what the name is. But they're spectacular. They did an amazing job, and that set off that event. I mean, one of the best anniversary events I've seen at any Disney park, and the drones were a big part of it. And you know, not to go off topic for a minute, but those guys are amazing in the fact that they did a one night only farewell, the final night of the 30th. And we went because the event was so great. I wanted to go to the end of it. And we went and they put on this special drone show just for the last night where they literally wrote "thank you" in the sky to the guests in every conceivable language someone could be speaking in that park.
That's cool.
And it was such a cool thing. And of course, then the Avengers drone show, the Marvel drone show,
incredible
across the way, taking it up a notch again. Like, and it's amazing. In a year and a half, they've come so far. Right, they went from the 30th show, which was this short little thing that they thought would just be a cute tag. People were flabbergasted. They updated that, made it better. Then they did the Marvel show, which was so far beyond that. Never mind what they did for Bastille Day. They did some incredible stuff. And now you're showing now. I mean, they went beyond again.
Yeah.
Like, these guys are getting better and better and better at this. And you got to think Disneyland and Walt Disney World know, the world is seeing this. And you would think, I think especially Orlando, I don't know, I'm sure there are all sorts of complications in Anaheim with doing this.
Yes.
You would think with the amount of land we own in Florida, there has got to be a way to do this.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, you have so much space; it has to happen.
I've heard for years that the for Epcot, the Lagoon show was going to feature drones because it's right outside the flight restriction. If you look on a map, we covered that on our previous show, pretty in depth. And it's right there, so it's like it's completely available. You are right, Tom. There are way challenges in Anaheim, or way more challenges than Florida. But I would think that they would lean into this a little bit for the states, or at least try to, for sure. We can only hope, but what they're doing in Paris right now is absolutely phenomenal. I was going to ask you too. Some people are like, I'm okay with Paris not necessarily getting the level of investment because it means that this park stays the way it was when it opened in 1992. And I know you've interviewed Eddie Soto, who worked on it and so forth, who brought a lot of these to life. We saw what they did with like the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea show there. Give us your thoughts on this. Are you necessarily like are you like, hey, these parks are getting investment, or are you like maybe some of these things shouldn't?
That's absolutely where I am. So
okay,
the local audience in Paris, the pass holders, they are ravenous. They really want something new in that park because again, there hasn't been a new ride. I think since I don't even know when Buzz Lightyear opened, 2007. I think.
Oh wow!
And they haven't had an e-ticket since Space Mountain in '95.
Ooh wee!
So I mean, they've spent all their money. They had to build the other park, and then every time there's been money to do something, it's been, can we fix the other park? Which I'm okay with because I think there is a purity for sure to that other park. It's a time capsule of, I think, the best era of Imagineering.
Agreed.
Where the money and the talent and everything fell into place. It's a magical park. It's really beautiful and special. That and Disney Sea, I think, are the two most special of the whole bunch. Not that they're obviously Disneyland's Walt's park and stuff, but what the connection to Walt in Paris is a bunch of guys who grew up. they were all Disneyland kids. Everyone that worked on that park grew up in Southern California, went to Disneyland, and they built a love letter to Walt, which is the park I think he would have wanted to build if he had the money and the resources.
Right.
And that's what's special about it. So yeah, it's scary as they update things, right? Like I know we lost the Fantasia Gelati everything in that park is beautiful. So even when you lose a tiny ice cream shop, you have to fear because every interior and exterior in that park is a work of art. And so we lost the gelato place. And I remember I was very upset. And they built a Luca dining room to tack on to a Bella Notte, which is the fast food Italian restaurant. And I went and saw it, and I go, oh, well, actually, this is very pretty, and it blends in well, and it looks like it's been here. And the same with the, they did the Coco restaurant in Frontierland recently, which was formerly, I'm going to blank on the name of what it was before, but it was slightly Zorro themed, but not really. And they did a great job with that. Like it looks like it belongs there. Yeah, there's a little bit of newer IP, but it fits. And if they keep with that stuff, it works. Where it doesn't work so much is, like you said, the 20,000 Leagues walkthrough, where let me say this, like the R&D guys at WDI are the heart and soul of that division. That effect is really cool. I went in there wanting to hate it very much. And I saw it in person, and I'm like, it's really convincing. It looks like the sea creatures are going by. So it's a really great piece of tech. Story-wise, do I like it? No, but also there was a moment where I was standing there watching where it dawned on me what they were trying to achieve. So let's be honest, the former version of that, for those that don't know, there was a 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea walkthrough attraction in Paris.
Correct.
And the porthole would open and the giant squid would come attack the window. If you're a small child, it was super scary.
I bet.
It had red glowing eyes and it looked like it did not like you. And so like what I noticed was there were a lot more kids sitting in that area just watching the window. And I had this moment where, of course, Disney didn't say this. Paris didn't say this in any press release or anything. But you sit there and you realize, oh, I see. They realized like that a lot of the younger guests did not like this experience because there was something really. Now, it's 20,000 Leagues. There's supposed to be a giant squid attack. So that part, the part of me that is the purist is upset. But the logical side of me is like, wow, look at all these kids who are hanging out in here enjoying this. Like clearly this was the right decision as much as it doesn't work for me.
Yeah, and you can see images of this provided by Walt Disney World News Today. You can see images of the previous squid right there. Very, very scary, I will say. And then you can actually see a little bit of, let's see if this will play here, of the new porthole technology. It does look, it looks pretty cool. It looks decent. I get a little weary about some of this stuff, right? I think I share your sentiments on this quite a bit because it's like, man, you can really go too far in one direction. You take things away from a historic attraction that alters the entire theme of the whole thing or the whole setup. And you got to be really careful. I think in this instance, it may have worked in terms of in person, and I'm glad it did. I'm glad you have kids resonating to it in a way that they didn't before.
But Discoveryland is dead, and it's been dead for a long time. No,
okay, all right. Well,
like that. You still have Hyperspace Mountain. Buzz Lightyear makes no sense there.
Yeah,
wasn't there
it's gone.
Like rumors of some coaster going over there, like a Star Wars coaster or something. I don't know. I saw something about a new roller coaster supposed to go in that area, but.
I don't know. The rumor has been they're going to build a Star Wars land out like towards the back of Discoveryland. That's the word on the street. We'll see, because right now Space Mountain is Star Wars themed, and the locals are not happy about it. It's been several years already. I think it's been over 5 years already of that thing.
I hate that. I do not like that at all. Go ahead.
Now, I was going to say, Tom, I had two questions pop in mind since we were talking about the other park. When you say other park, it just reminds me of California Adventure. So I have two questions for you. One, what would you do to fix Hollywood Land, the back lot, the studios area? And then two, what are your overall thoughts on Disneyland Forward? Like, what do you expect to come? Like, what are your dream? Like, what would you do with the piece of land? Would you use the Toy Story lot for the entertainment district, or would you put the rides in the on the parking lots? Like, how would you use that zoning effort if it were to get approved?
I'd build a third park. I mean, that's where we're going. I
That's
know
obvious.
they're showing you this whole thing where it's like integrated, and they're gonna
Mhm.
they're gonna expand Disneyland and DCA somehow just out to the side that makes the parks kind of too long. I think
Yeah.
it's a weird shape. I
It's a
don't
lot of walking.
look like this is an example. This is not what's going to happen.
Correct.
We are
Mhm.
going towards a third. We're heading towards Park 3.
On the Toy Story lot, you correct, right? Because that is the
Yeah,
biggest.
I think so. Yeah, and I'm sure there'll be a new. I'm sure there'll be another entertainment district to bridge the gap. That makes sense to me. I mean, that's what I do, and I think that's what they're gonna do. I don't think it's even a secret. I think if you know, talk to anybody even close.
I mean,
to
literally
Disneyland
says
Resort, everyone
possible
knows
immersive
Park
theme
3 is
park.
coming.
Yeah. I mean, it says it right there. It's pointing the wrong direction, but it does say it.
We need the new zoning, and then when we get the zoning, we
Exactly.
can do all the things we
And-
want to do. That's what I would do. As far as California Adventure, they were on such a roll, right? Cars Land and Buena Vista Street, World of Color,
Gorgeous.
fixing the pier, and then even
Yes.
after, right, Grizzly Peak Airfield, what an improvement,
Oh, definitely 100%.
right? And then we got to Pixar Pier, and we derailed. We just totally derailed with that in Avengers Campus.
Mhm.
So I don't even know what to do with Hollywood Land at this point. Like they're trying very hard to get you into Filler Magic. They moved the whole entrance. And they people
Poor
in
thing's
there.
so empty.
I don't know what the answer is. I don't. Because you've already kind of given up the theme of that park.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you just slap like a movie e-ticket back there. I think it's time for the animation building to go. I think they've
Yeah, especially
that-
because they just took away the Beast area for the Imagination campus.
Yeah, there's very little left in there that's open
Yeah.
to all guests at this point.
Now,
you know?
the Disneyland, let's say, so Disneyland 40 is approved. They have they can destroy the parking lots. Right. The Disneyland Hotel, I think we can all agree it's pretty old looking. Very iconic, but old looking. Would you support, kind of demoing the tower, rebuilding the towers, maybe on the parking lot behind, what was that, the Simba lot, this one where the Peter Pan stuff is over there, like maybe in the vein of, I hope it'd be a little bit more themed than the DVC stuff, but anyway, would you really support kind of rebuilding the Disneyland Hotel, almost like that proposal that got killed back in 2017 type of thing, and kind of just demoing the old towers and maybe expanding downtown Disney, the little Disney Springs type of vibe going on there?
No, because that would hurt my heart greatly. Because those buildings,
I agree.
it's like the
Tom.
contemporary. There's a lot of history in those buildings, and I
So
love
much.
how funky and weird they are. I love, like, I just went with someone who hasn't, I think, only had been once, and so I took them to the hotel, and I was like, "You got to go to the bathroom." And they're like, "What?" It's like, go.
The bathroom
You're
is
going to
quite
go
nice.
down this weird set of stairs, and you're going to go to the bathroom and go look at the wallpaper, and then also just the fact that you had to go downstairs and there's like a cast tunnel system going through there. And,
That bathroom was cool. Actually, fun fact about that bathroom. When I went in there, it was kind of weird. Some dude was changing in his swimsuit, like right in the open the hallway. I'm like, wow. But that was my first introduction to that bathroom. But it's memorable.
It's a weird place, and I love it. There's too much. Like, look, they're not the original buildings, right? Those were demolished a long time ago. But I think you keep them. I think you keep them.
I think so. I mean, that's the thing about some of these vintage, or I should say, or classic legacy hotels, is that they have a brand almost of their own. They don't have to necessarily be modernized and all this kind of stuff. I do like the incorporation of the Disneyland theme into the Disneyland Hotel that happened a few years ago. I think that was quite nice. But
And the
we don't have
Thunder
to.
Mountain model.
Yeah, the Big Thunder Mountain.
I love that.
Is awesome. And the Frontier Tower, so cool. We don't have to change things up that big, It's like keep them the closer to the way they were, with maybe some some modern flourishes is okay, but we don't have to get rid of the waterfall, let's say, in the Polynesian, for example, right? We can leave that there. We can theme around it. The contemporary, like you said, Tom, so much history. It's so iconic. Yeah, okay, right? It's not, the Wyndham 2024. I get it. But that doesn't necessarily take anything away from it, because there's a demand of its own, which is the history, the place. It's its own brand, it's its own icon. So I don't know. I agree with you. Let's not look, if we're gonna take down towers, Pixar Place Hotel. Come on. What are we
definitely.
doing?
Well, that we had the chance. I think it's past now.
I know, so sad.
It's been pushed off 10 years. That is for sure. But speaking of getting rid of the past and changing things, I want to bring this to your attention, because I know you're a guy who would definitely appreciate this. This is via Mouse Info. Sorry, I'm gonna bring them up, but they had this story right here.
What do we got against Mouse Info? Is there drama?
No, there's not. No, there's not. I just didn't want to reference another. I wanted to keep this as WDWNT.
I mean, other
as
sites
possible.
exist. I'm not, okay. I don't stick my head in the sand and pretend that we're the only ones doing this.
All right, I just didn't want to.
Traitor, Dr. Dre, you're a traitor.
Well, luckily you pulled up one of the
stop.
few that's never fought with me publicly, so that's a good pick.
Becca and Joey of Mouse Info are very nice people. Are very sweet. But this comes from Shag's Instagram. I'm sure you know who he is. Famous Disney artist, who are an artist who has done work for Disney. I will say.
Tiki, a lot of his stuff.
Bunch of tiki stuff. Yeah, and I guess he was showing off this mug here, which was not produced by Disney, and he went into kind of why that was. And I want to kind of get your sense of this, because there are so many implications from this that I think it's wide-reaching rather than just a mug. He says right here, if you know the story behind this mug, you'll know why I gave it this name, this Forbidden God name here. Long story short, a major corporation rejected this design, explaining that they were wary of cultural appropriation and being offensive to some people. That's their prerogative, and I won't mock them for it. This is Shaq saying this. But I thought it was a cool design and should see the light of day. So this company produced it for me. I know this major corporation isn't happy that I went ahead and released this, but I'm not happy with this major corporation. They didn't give me a single sample of the art, merchandise, or apparel that I designed for them last summer, despite me asking several times. In fact, no one ever even answered my requests. I keep hoping someone from this major corporation will reach out to me. I'm sure that they have heard from various sources that I'm not happy and may not work on them, with them again. For me, losing a hugely popular artist like Shag, who's someone is influential in that kind of artist space right there, I think that's significant enough. But it kind of goes beyond that, because the cultural appropriation thing is a really interesting thing. We've not necessarily heard that connected to the Tiki Room. I know we may have heard...
Tiki, if you look at it this way, if you had to explain to someone what cultural appropriation was in a short amount of time, do you know where I would take them?
Where?
Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room. like Figment and Tiki Room, those are my two things as a kid more than anything. I love them, but like really and truly, if you want to explain cultural appropriation, Tiki Room's a good place to start.
It is fair, right? It was from the Tiki era of what is it? World War II veterans coming back home from some of those more exotic locales, wanted to recreate it here, right, in the mid-century. That's kind of where that comes from. Like, I would say, if there's a definition for cultural appropriation, I would say that is it, right?
Tiki culture in general, yeah.
Sure. But if they're weary of creating merch for this, right, what does that mean for the future of the Tiki Room going forward, and what Disney kind of thinks about it? We know we're getting a change to the Big Country Jamboree. We know that Splash Mountain obviously is being converted to Eon's Mighty Adventure. What does that mean for iconic attractions like this, or maybe the Carousel of Progress and others?
You know, the first thing I thought was when they said they were going to put together sort of they have sort of a team of people who are in charge of essentially, they looked through all the parks and they were trying to figure out what could be offensive and what
Stories
needs to be
Matter
updated.
initiative, I believe.
Yeah, and so I think Tiki Room for me, I thought was at the top of the list. And so what was funny was going into the 50th anniversary, there were plans to update Tiki Room and get rid of Country Bears in Florida.
Oh, yes.
We were going to do the Moana Tiki Room. It was in development. And then they were going to get rid of bears completely for a Toy Story thing.
Mhm.
And I don't know what happened there. Someone stepped in and did something. But anyway.
Yeah, a little bit scrupulous, right, Tom?
Yeah, but,
Yeah,
but long story short, I don't want to harp on it. It's a long time ago now. And but Tiki Room, like I think part of that was not only could we get Moana in the park, I think part of it was, Moana is a very tasteful representation of Polynesian cultures. If we tie that into Tiki Room, can we kill two birds with one stone?
Mhm.
The problem they're going to run into is Anaheim, right? Where Anaheim, I am pretty sure there are a few thousand people who will chain themselves to the exterior of that building.
Sure.
And I don't
Almost
blame them, right? Because there is a special feeling to that. Like Walt Disney paid for that out of pocket. That is where animatronics were born. And then what's most important in Anaheim, I think, is it's been passed down now from generation to generation. So you will inevitably see people with their small children in there, and it's kind of them introducing them to it. And that's a magical thing that it's not an e-ticket ride. It's not a thrill ride. It's not based on a movie the kids are watching at home.
Right.
It is this special thing that my parents brought me to the Tiki Room when I was a kid. And now your first trip to Disneyland, I brought you to the Tiki Room and we ate a Dole Whip. And you have this moment where you can recreate the magic of your childhood with your children. And at Disneyland, there's a lot of those places. At Disney World, they're few and far between at this point.
Yeah.
So I think like the thing keeping the Tiki Room alive is Anaheim, because I think that is so revered and appreciated and beloved there that if they touched a line of dialogue, people would storm the place. Florida, no one's going to care, right? When all that stuff was going down, and it was kind of like, well, are we going to try to convince, the public to save the Country Bears and the Tiki Room? Very honestly, we looked at each other and went, I think our efforts are better spent on bears, right? Like that's the original. This is where it began. It's the only one left in the US. Tiki Room, I don't think the Florida audience, necessarily a large amount of them, ever really connected with it. It doesn't, it's not where it originated. It has a lot going against it. It didn't exist for, several years. I think it had a lot working against it in Florida. So we decided like Bears is the thing that it's an important part of the fabric of the Magic Kingdom.
Right.
Tiki Room to a lesser extent, as opposed to Disneyland, where I think it's untouchable, right? It's one of those things like Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln or, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride or Peter Pan or Dumbo. There's a group there that is indelible and cannot be touched in a Tiki Room. Yeah, but I mean, there's definitely some moments in that show that are, and I actually, the husband of one of our staff members is of Polynesian descent. He's from Hawaii.
Okay.
And he will not go in there because he's offended by it, and rightfully so, right? So you have to ask serious questions. Like I love the Tiki Room and I would die for it. But if a human being comes up to you and goes, I have actually of this descent and this is offensive to me, you're going to say to their face, like, too bad, I like singing birds. Like, what are you? It's like the Splash Mountain thing. Like, I love Splash Mountain to death. It was my favorite thing in Magic Kingdom. There's Splash Mountain art on the wall here. But it was really hard to argue. Like, how am I going to have that argument with anyone? Time has passed that thing by. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's tough because we live in a very charged climate, right? Yeah. Where people have very strong opinions about any number of things. And so I kind of I look at these attractions as kind of art pieces of the period. That's kind of how I look at them, and maybe that's not the best way to look at them because obviously they are part of a ever changing dynamic thing like theme parks are.
They're art, though. I mean, the Imagineers are artists, right? Like,
absolutely.
Sculpted, things were painted. Like all of that is art.
So, like art, it's like, okay, well, maybe necessarily doesn't represent the company, corporations, or the people of today's era, but it's still something that maybe should be preserved. So I definitely have mixed feelings about it, because on the one hand it's like, okay, there are some depictions, right? Like there's depictions in Fantasia, for example, that are like, whoa, okay, that's that's really really far there. But then there are others that are kind of like on the line there, and it's like, okay, well maybe you have people who are absolutely offended by it, like genuinely speaking, and it's like, okay, we'll obviously have to consider them for sure. But do we necessarily change these things to such a large degree in order to to keep placating those of us who are offended? It's a very complicated and tricky issue, and Disney has to be on this kind of tightrope because they have to appeal to the broadest demographics possible, especially given how much these things actually cost and how many people visit these things a year. So it's a difficult thing. Wizard?
Yeah, it is difficult, and I definitely get both sides. It's just, boy, and I'm gonna switch over to Splash for a second. Just when they update something, boy, I wish it was like the source material. Splash Mountain, I know they changed the storyline a couple times.
Yeah.
But in fact, I just showed my fiance The Princess and the Frog the first time a couple days ago. She'd never seen it before. I want to get her ready for the ride later on this year in Disneyland. And I had a reminder that I was like, oh, you won't see this character, this character, this character.
Yeah.
Sequel thing. I kind of wish, because I know they're worried how they were frogs for most of the movie, but I had a decent idea, I thought. I wish I had retell, I'm like the Fantasyland Dark Ride type thing, retell the story, and even there's two sides to the attraction, so they can have Tiana in animatronic form telling her story even as they're frogs. That way she's still there, you can see her, and she's like telling you her story, so it's not just them as frogs the whole time. I wish they did it that way, because we can get the whole iconic songs and the characters who are dead now. And then, but also the look, right? Because I know the animatronic, which was fantastic, came out today, but it's just interesting because, and I know there's a Tiana sequel series, so I'm guessing this is what she'll look like in the series, but it just doesn't look like her from the movie. But I get it because it's after the movie, so I don't know. I just it's a little concerning on that part. But the animatronic itself, I'm glad it's not a screen face, and it looks fantastic. I'm just curious because I'm still a little concerned about the music and then the actual attraction storyline, because I'm like, man, I still want that Princess and the Frog. But what do you think, Tom?
The story is where they can fumble, right? Like, because we're looking at this figure, this is not where they're fumbling.
Yeah,
the money, sure. I would agree.
The money and the quality is there. Right? We haven't seen this in a long time. God, I mean, look at Rise of the Resistance. For as amazing as it is, their animatronics in that thing are junk. To the point where people started rumors that Kylo Ren was the witch from Great Movie Ride because no one could figure out why the figure was so bad. You're right. I mean, this is a whole different quality level. Like,
it looks gorgeous,
fantastic. So that's not where they're going to fumble. On the music side, I will say, I think that movie has one of the best soundtracks.
I know.
Any Disney animated film, I think that's going to carry a lot of the weight. But where they could fumble is this story, right? Because you are taking a lot of just like Batu, you are taking a lot of chances. You are taking people for a ride.
Literally.
You're taking them far beyond the original story. You're taking them outside of the movie. And, is the food co-op thing too much for people? Are they going to be upset that she looks a little different, right? Her hairstyle's different.
Yeah.
Maybe I saw people saying she looks like she's been aged. And I was like, I don't really see it, but maybe just because of the hair, it just, it's a.
I think it's because of the hair and the facial. Oh, maybe I think it's really the hair. It's kind of like a mom type look.
Yeah, and I think that's why instead of it's correct for the time period, but I think if someone had that hair today, you might be like, that's a mom hairstyle. Yeah. And so that might be why people are feeling that way. But the story is where it could fall apart, because is it a bridge too far to go down this whole rabbit hole of the food co-op? And are we the trend of eliminating what's the word I'm looking for here? We're eliminating danger. We're eliminating, look at
Fear,
several
thrill.
of the, like we're afraid to have, conflict. That's what I'm looking for. We're afraid in these rides based on the animated films to have conflict. So we have a long, like 10-year stretch of animated film rides that avoid conflict, right? Frozen Ever After. We go after the movie, there is no conflict.
Yes.
Enchanted Tale of Beauty and the Beast in Tokyo, they show you the mob scene for like 5 seconds, and then very quickly he comes back to life. Little Mermaid ride at DCA and Magic Kingdom, right? Ursula like is in the background somehow being electrocuted instead of being stabbed with a boat. And it happens. They're kissing. I just always love that scene because it's Ariel and Eric are kissing in the hallway, and then this woman's dying in the background. She's like, and they're like, I love you. She's dying. But yeah, we're like avoiding conflict, right? It's celebrating musical moments and eliminating the conflict of these films, which, and I think we were so afraid they were going to do that with the Snow White ride at Disneyland, right? When they said they're going to change the ending.
For sure. Yes.
And instead, I think definitely at some point that changed where they were like, you know what? We'll have the witch scene, but we're going to, you have 5 feet of space to fit it in. You just stack the dwarves and put her at the top and call it a day. But yeah, it seems like with the kiddie rides, and I hate to call Splash a kiddie ride, but it seems like we're avoiding conflict and scariness because we think that's gonna, I don't know, maybe Stitch's Great Escape left such a scar on WDI where they were so convinced they could make Alien Encounter not scary, and at that point I think they've been afraid to ever do any attraction that might appeal to children that could possibly scare any of them. And we really try to stay away from that now, right? And I think you're going to see it. All the Fantasy Springs rides, this attraction, you're going to see an avoidance of conflict.
That's a weird thing, too. An avoidance of voodoo, from what I understand. I know the early Imagineers wanted
is that movie going to age well, right? Because Mama Odie and Dr. Facilier, we might be 10 years away from people being like, those are kind of stereotypical too.
Even at the time that came out, people were critical of the depiction of Tiana and so forth. So you make a good point about this for sure. Obviously, they're going with the more authentic approach, the more let's say well-natured, well-meaning approach to this attraction,
trying to
which
be
is
timeless, right?
Yeah, which is all well and good, but like you said, do you strip it of that fantastic quality that it could necessarily have without these things?
Could it be, are you keeping it from being Splash Mountain, right? Because that's you have to achieve that, right? The rule of theme parks is you have to be better than the thing that came before, because otherwise for Ask Mission Space, because otherwise till the end of time, people will just bring up the thing that was there before. So you have to leave that in the dust. And but I agree with the book report. Like Tony Baxter called it the book report ride, right?
Yes.
And sometimes the guest expectation is kind of the book report of the movie.
Yeah.
But for better or worse, we're going this route with this attraction. We'll see how much it ties into the series. Will the series be a hit? We'll have to wait and see.
I had a source who actually recently just met with Tony Baxter, and his thoughts on this were kind of similar to what you described there, Tom. It was just like people kind of expect her to be in the gown. People expect these scenes from the movie. And when you're not quite getting that, I guess that's why he lost his enthusiasm for the redo and stepped away from the project himself. Yeah. But it is one of those things where it's like, man, this is a real big step here. Not only are you taking what was a very iconic attraction, Splash Mountain, and doing anything with it, but you're replacing it with something that I think a lot of people, I still hear people, Tom, that go, I can't wait to hear Dr. Facilier as we're going up the lift hill. It's like, that's not coming, guys, and it's that expectation that's worrying.
Look at my favorite thing was Fast and the Furious at Universal Studios Florida.
Mm.
I remember like every time you walked by that construction site or just waiting for like Stay and Scream at Horror Nights, people would be talking about it before it opened, and people would be like, "Oh, it's going to be a fast car ride." And I just remember sitting there going, "It's not. You're going to sit in a bus. It's a bus ride." And again, what is the like? Same with Mario Kart too, where I think there was an expectation,
Right.
and I don't think the expectation was met. Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, I think people had expectations that weren't met. I think hardcore Star Wars fans really love it. If you're super into the animated series and some of that stuff, I think you really love. I mean, everyone likes Rise, but otherwise, the land itself, I think people walked through there and were like, this is not what I thought this was going to be, and I don't really connect to a whole lot in here."
It's very profound. Wizard, final questions?
God, oh boy. You first. I can't think of any.
Well, you did talk about entertainment there, Tom, and we Epic Universe, obviously, in the lead up to that. We saw this a little bit with Disney, too, in the lead up to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. This reduction of entertainment with these big capital expenditures on the horizon kind of makes sense. But you referenced the puppeteering at Disney parks. I know it fell victim to something similar that is happening today, actually.
Yeah.
These 1,700 Disneyland cast members and parade cast members unionizing with Actors Equity Association. This is a big move, and look, hey, listen, in these times, if you feel you can get what's yours, go at it. I mean, I actually am pretty sympathetic to that. However, this unionization effort is a little bit concerning because we've seen the impact of these decisions before. I mean, for example, there was a kind of kid-friendly show in Disney's California Adventure for a long period of time that featured puppets and so forth. And the reason why it's not a thing anymore is because they went down this route. And it's like, oh man, I mean, is this really the right call? I don't want to put you on the spot too much because I know this is dealing with issues that are vastly bigger than what this show could provide. As these wages and so forth go up and the costs to operate these parks go up, is this kind of a dual-edged sword where you might have a reduction of these things going forward?
The great thing about the internet fandom is the ability to hold these large corporations accountable.
Right.
That's the great thing. And we've learned that we can. We've learned that both of these corporations are very afraid of public scrutiny. And so I will tell you, the cast members that I will hear from the most the last 5 or 6 years are departments where things are not great, right? So I can tell when things are not great in a certain department because I'll start to hear from people in it because they know WDWNT, like we'll cover that. We'll bring that to the forefront because, media lists or not, now we're media lists, but when we weren't on the media list, the great thing about having that freedom, and we still have it, Disney has come a long way.
That's cool.
Yeah, no, we're still allowed to post whatever we want, which is great. And have media access, it's a win-win for sure. But the great thing was we could post about things like that made a difference in people's lives and brought things like that to the forefront. And that's, I went to school for journalism. That's stuff I'm supposed to do. I still don't think my journalism professors would be proud of the fact that I went into covering theme parks, but here nor there. But at least, I'm doing some of what you're supposed to do as a journalist. And
I think so. Yes.
Be the voice of the voiceless, right?
Correct.
So the Disneyland Entertainment Department has been one of those departments the last few years where I have heard from parade performers, techs, all sorts of people that things are not good, right? Like, I don't know how much of this has made publication, and I know Phantasmic had a lot of issues leading to that fire.
Yes.
There were a lot of known issues before that incident occurred. There were a lot of things that happened in the last run of Magic Happens, in the last run of Christmas Fantasy Parade. There were a lot of things that were not great for performers that happened in runs of things, both on all fronts. So I don't know that this is purely a money thing. I don't think this is purely a money thing. I think they're looking for a little bit of coverage and protection, the entertainment people at Disneyland, because I will tell you, like the Disneyland entertainment department, I think used to be the envy of all the rest. And then I think
Absolutely.
Tokyo pulled away at some point, and then Paris eventually even blew past them, I think. But it's been a long downward spiral for the Disneyland entertainment department, right? And
Mhm.
if you just look at quality wise, right? If we look at the length of parades, right? If we
Mhm.
go from Parade of Dreams and then we go down to Soundsational, and now we have something that is a fraction of the length of Soundsational
It's
in
so
Magic
sad.
Happens.
Mhm.
We're seeing a slow, gradual decline there, and it's making its way backstage, right? Like there's all sorts of staffing issues, and they're doing all sorts of things with the entertainment cast they're not supposed to do, and blah blah blah. And I think that's more what this is about. I don't look, money might be a byproduct, but I think there's a lot more that they're fighting for in the entertainment department at Disneyland.
That's profound. Profound. Thank
That's
you so much for commenting on that.
yeah. I was woo, learned a lot there.
Yeah,
Oh man.
I
Woo.
I learned a lot, and I know somebody who's
Um,
who's been with the entertainment tour for quite some time. So I definitely feel like I learned a lot from that, and I do appreciate your coverage on all of this stuff, Tom. You guys cover the stuff that a lot of others are afraid to, and I think it's really really cool. And I think it's always been kind of a in that way it's been a guiding light for me, and I think Wizard here that we just we're going to touch on the stuff that others might feel it's taboo to touch on. So thank you so much for providing that. And also too, I want to go ahead and compliment you a little bit more on highlighting these classic Imagineers recently, like Jim Shaw, for
mhm.
example, Eddie Soto, just all these great guys that I think their stories are important. They're important to maintain them, and a lot of these guys are going away. And I always say like, hey, get these guys on recording, get these guys, their
Yeah.
thoughts down somewhere where we can reference because man, once they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah. And that's what we've done with the couple of events we've done too. Like we did one for the Disney World 50th, we did one for Epcot's 40th, and we actually have one coming up for the 35th anniversary of Hollywood Studios, where we're reuniting several of the people that built the Great Movie Ride, Superstar Television, Monster Sound Show, the people behind Muppet Vision, and as a byproduct, the people that designed things that weren't built, like Great Muppet Movie Ride and things like that.
So good.
People that made Tower of Terror. So we're I love that stuff, right? Because I'm a fan. I got into this because I love the art, right? You talked about Tiki Room before. It is art, right? And you don't realize that when you're a kid. But as you get older and you go down the rabbit hole, you realize like how special this art form is and then I've been granted incredible opportunities that I never imagined. And one of them is like getting these people together. So if you go to stage89.com, we have the full list of who's coming, Eric Jacobson and Jim Scholl will actually be there and a lot more great people that help build the Disney MGM studios. We have in-person tickets. And then also the great thing is no matter where you are, you can stream it. So we're doing a
Ooh,
streaming
nice.
ticket you can buy, and all proceeds from both the in-person tickets and the online tickets go to Give Kids the World. We're not making a cent
Oh,
from
that's
this.
nice.
We're
That's so
covering
cool.
everyone's travel for our guests, obviously.
Yeah.
And then everything that's left goes to Give Kids the World. So
Oh wow, that's incredible.
That is so awesome. Very, very cool. It takes a lot of work to put these things together. I mean, it's
Hmm.
yeah,
and to I hope you're at least reducing you're paying back your costs of this because it's a tremendous amount of work. But to give all
it's
the
not
profit,
about that, right? Like WDWNT has been very successful, and it's I think we're not good businessmen. That's not because we didn't get into this to be business people.
right?
That's
Yeah,
not who we are. So right, like we're very blessed that the company has been successful. But I think it's so important, like the same thing when we stood up for the Country Bears. It's so important to be a part of the fandom and fight for what the fans believe in, and in this case, do what like look, I Disney's going to do their own thing, right? Like they don't believe so much in celebrating their past. And,
yeah,
we saw that the last anniversary of the studios, they had a presentation where they weren't allowed to mention a single attraction that formerly existed in the park. I don't even know if they mentioned that the park had a different name before. Yeah, and then they unveiled the logo, which people actually booed. People booed the new logo of the park, and that was the 30th of the studios. It was sad. I was like, this is not how we should celebrate this park. So we wanted to do a 35th anniversary event and like you said, like these people aren't going to be around forever. So we have reached this really interesting point at 35 years. We're kind of at peak nostalgia, but also all the people that worked on this park are either have been retired or are very recently retired.
Right.
And so they're able to do stuff like this. So we have like Mike West. Mike West, just his last big project he was the concept designer for Epic Universe. So he just retired from Universal fairly recently. He worked one of his earliest jobs in the business was on MGM. And so he's coming to the event to present, right? So the timing is right to get these people together and share these stories and get them recorded so that people know all of this, right? So that the history of the art, the history of this piece of pop culture is preserved.
Yeah, I mean, and this is a tradition going back to like Tony Baxter, Bruce Gordon, showing up at Disneylandia events and so forth. It's why we know the stories that we do is because somebody put together something in which these stories could be conveyed in a public forum. So I just think that's super awesome, Tom. Thank you so much for doing that and keeping this history alive.
I want to do it for me. I mean, it's a byproduct that everyone else gets to see it, but I mean. No, I'm honored that to even just get ready for this event, just to talk to all these folks on the phone has been, the thrill of a lifetime.
That's so cool. That's awesome.
That is awesome, man. Hey, everyone, go check out stage89.com. Stream it, get your ticket. It's going down. And
absolutely.
Thank you, Tom, for joining us today on this fantastic stream. Super specialist. Come on anytime you want to come on.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And you can find him on WDWNT. Check out his daily stories, or the whole staff's daily. He doesn't write all of them because that'd be a lot.
No, I don't write any of them anymore. I'm busy on the YouTube side now.
Oh, see, check out their YouTube channel as well. Check out Dr. Dre Vashguy on the theme park. Park Place. There you go. Park Place YouTube channel, and right here on Theme Park Universe. Subscribe, and guess what? Have a universal day.